Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I am the voice and the astrologer behind the YouTube channel, Nonconformist Conscience. Let me scoot up. And the webpage. I also want to say there's a Facebook page. I don't know why I haven't mentioned this before, but if you guys go on Facebook and you find Nonconformist Conscience, you can see whenever I post things. I always post on there. And if I'm late on a forecast or whatever day I'm uploading the forecast, I always let people know. So if that's something you want to do, go ahead and find me on Facebook. Anyway, this week we have a lot of Virgo dynamics going on. There are quite a few astrological conversations playing out with the sun, which is in the sign of Virgo. And I was thinking about this after looking at all the energy of what's going on. It reminded me of the tarot card that is, corresponding to the sign of Virgo, which is the Hermit and the Hermit's journey. And I want to talk about this a little bit just because it will give you guys information about the energetics of this week. So in the tarot with the Hermit's journey, there's an emphasis on transition and soul searching and the need to go within and introspection and analyzing in order to have the transition that we are needing to have. And so today on the 6th, we have an inferior conjunction with Mercury retrograde and the sun. So an inferior conjunction happens whenever there's a retrograde, and it is whenever a planet is passing between the sun and the Earth's orbit. So it almost looks like it's hiding behind the sun. And, eventually it comes out of that, and that planet can become a morning star if it is close enough to the Earth afterwards. So an inferior conjunction also is about the underworld. It's about introspection, and Mercury retrograde is about reviewing and reevaluating in order to resolve something. And so there's an emphasis even in the sign of Virgo to have introspection in order to have discernment. So it's like we take all the pieces that we get from the Gemini side of Mercury, all the information we've been gathering, and that is the outer expression of Mercury. But the inner expression of Mercury, which is yin energy moving inward, is in the sign of Virgo. And that is where we analyze and discern that information in order to make a choice from the information that we have been getting. Mercury retrograde, there's also an emphasis on relying on the intuition. So as you analyze and gather the information, at some point, all of the pieces come together to form a whole and complete picture. And that is when our intuition comes in. And there's this emphasis on needing to listen to that inner voice as a way to intuit what choices need to be made. But during this inferior conjunction, there is a need to go deep within and to honor the information that we have been gathering as a way to create wisdom and discernment. And so this is the Hermit's journey. In order to, start a new cycle, we can be in a transitionary phase. And that is the phase that we're in. And this is very appropriate if you think about next week, we have a new moon in the sign of Virgo. So I wanted to, speak to this and to let us really think about all of this as I talk further about this week. It's also really key to remember that Pluto, the soul, which is in each one of our natal charts, that is, you know, what our soul has been actualizing. Transiting Pluto shows us, you know, what the front running core dynamic is that we're working on. And you put that in your own natal chart, and it shows you how we're going about actualizing our own natal Pluto. But transiting Pluto is retrograde as well, and it is in the sign of Capricorn, and it is still square the nodal axis with an emphasis on the South Node in Libra. So we are looking at karmic relational dynamics of where imbalances have occurred, how to become independent instead of interdependent in our relationships, how to gain our own natural authority and ask and answer our own questions, how we step outside of the status quo of what it is that is known and familiar that creates the sense of inner security, even if maybe it's not the right thing. So even with this inferior conjunction between Mercury retrograde and the sun, this is a review, a revision in order to resolve something pertaining to what we've been gathering about our relational dynamics. Venus is a player within this week as well. She just stationed direct. And then a few hours later, Jupiter stationed retrograde and is ruled by that Venus. So there's a lot of information that we have been reviewing and that we need to expand upon and continue to review in order to make correct judgment, Pluto and Capricorn, and to make new choices through discernment that helps us make correct judgment. That would be Mercury retrograde and the sign of Virgo. So this is a week to go deep within, since Venus stationed direct. And all of the things that can be coming up, seeing as there's a lot of Virgo energy this week, this is about 1, transition, 2, introspection, the Hermit's journey, but also it's about a purging and purification process of habitual emotional dynamics or the cycles that keep coming back around within our relationships. Virgo is the sign of really wanting to self-perfect. And it's through analyzing what isn't quite right within. And anyone with a lot of Virgo or 6th house will understand this phenomenon. They're always in their head thinking about, what do I need to improve upon within myself? What keeps coming back? Virgo can also be this like feeling of, oh my God, why does this keep coming back? That why, or asking that, helps us to analyze the information so that a purging and purification process can happen. I like to talk to people about the sign of Virgo and this dynamic, as well as whenever our awareness shifts, whenever we understand the why of karmic dynamics recycling and the habituations of it, when we self-improve through that awareness, it purges from our soul structure, and we never have to relive these experiences again in this type of way. And that is something that I think is really beautiful about the sign of Virgo. Although sometimes getting there can be extremely self-deprecating and self-critical, and the fear of not being perfect or not being ready can come up. So the key is to not deny oneself or to make excuses. That is the distorted part of Virgo whenever it is not being expressed naturally. That is a tendency that tends to come about. And so it's really about whatever it is that comes into your awareness during this week, to just put one foot in front of the other and to take it one step at a time in order to self-improve. The value is in the effort, not in the outcome. perfection is an illusion. You're not going to get it right the first time usually. So the next day on the 7th, Mercury is going to semi-sextile in a new phase to Venus. Venus is at 12 degrees Leo, where it's going to hang out there for a few days before she picks up speed. And she is now ruled by this sun in Virgo. So this speaks to Venus and Leo is about self-actualizing through understanding our relationship to self and with another. The sun is the integration point of where we can experience the self-actualization or creative self-actualization. And it's through this Virgo dynamic of really self-improving. What did you learn during Venus retrograde that started on July 9th and ended on the 3rd of September? That now you can use that information regarding your values and your needs and your inner dynamics, your relationship to self, since that was a really big emphasis, and also relationship with other, seeing as the South Node is in Libra and that it's Venus ruled. What information now can you utilize as a way to analyze, to have discernment around the why relational dynamics and habituations come up, excuse me, for you. The semi-sextile in a new phase really speaks to, and seeing as Mercury is retrograde, it double downs on this energy of whatever is coming up is something that has come up before. It's been done at least once, and it's circling back around, either because you need to, in true Mercury fashion, make a new choice revolving around your relational dynamics as a way to self-actualize and to self-improve, or this can be a conversation where oftentimes when we're really trying to purge and purify relational dynamics, especially of a karmic nature, once we get to the why and the bottom of it, and we start to have discernment around our choices, we can feel like we're trucking along and doing great. But our soul will test itself to see, are you really purging this from your soul structure? Seeing as it's Virgo, some people will be having the dynamics of masochism come up right now, especially with the Virgo dynamics in tandem with Libra. This can be masochism within your relationships where you're self-abandoning or doing Virgo denying oneself, which is a form of self-abandonment, which happens in the sign of Libra. There is a natural semi-sextile between the sign of Virgo and Libra. So they're both transition. Well, Virgo is transitionary, and then Libra speaks to objectivity. So there's this need to really analyze and be objective around what is coming up, discerning, making new choices, reviewing the information that we've been gaining or that we gained during Venus retrograde. And like I said, the semi-sextile in a new phase can be one of where we're testing ourselves, or we are getting the opportunity to make a new choice about a particular situation that's already arisen before. So it's also seen as, this is Virgo and Leo energy, to not deny oneself and to stay within self-love and self-dignity with whatever's coming up. How can you show yourself that you love yourself? What choice do you need to make to, really show up in that way? This helps us go back to that Pluto and Capricorn that's squaring that South Node in Libra, to have a natural sense of authority and to have our own natural sovereignty through correct judgment that comes from correct choice making. Then on the 8th, we have the sun and Virgo in a disseminating trine to Jupiter retrograde. The sun is ruled by Mercury retrograde. Jupiter in Taurus is ruled by Venus in the sign of Leo. And a disseminating trine can really speak to having information be imparted to us. And with Jupiter, it's about expanding upon the information that was already gathered during the Venus retrograde. And it's about trusting the inner voice and trusting the intuition and going within as a way to intuit the information in a new way that helps us to have more self-reliance and healthier self-esteem. And again, it's an act of self-love. And the act of self-love can also be about what does need to be purged, what does keep coming up, seeing as the sun is in Virgo. And that is the integration point. This is also a really beautiful conversation where one can expand upon the knowledge and have information be disseminated that brings a new awareness around the dynamics that we were all experiencing during Venus retrograde. Because in a few hours after Venus station direct, Jupiter retrograded and is ruled by this Venus. So there's this emphasis on really expanding upon the information that was up for review during that Venus retrograde cycle. This is information that also, in true Jupiter fashion in the sign of Taurus, helps us to understand our personal and natural truths. For some, they can be reviewing the beliefs about themselves that have created guilt, and whether or not this guilt has been conditioned or is natural guilt from something that one really, you know, the soul has a way when we do something that isn't in accordance with natural law, which is also a Jupiter phenomenon, that we will experience natural guilt. That means if I treat someone really badly and I see that I hurt them, I can have natural guilt about this because I see like, oh, I wasn't supposed to do that. That's just like one little way. And conditioned guilt is more revolving around seeing as this Venus that rules Jupiter is the ruler of the South Node in Libra. This can be where we've been conditioned to, you know, abandon ourselves and our own values and needs for another. And so a lot can be coming up where we can have information that can be expanded on for us to gain deeper levels of awareness about what was up for review, that helps us understand our natural truths, that can create a better sense of inner security and reliance and healthier self-esteem with this conversation. Oftentimes with Jupiter, though, when someone has a Jupiter transit, oftentimes, because it's called the Great Benefic, because it expands upon things, it's also a teacher. Jupiter is one of a teacher, the planet of a teacher. And oftentimes it teaches us in order to receive the benefit, we have to let go or release something. So it's like the bearer of gifts, but in order to receive the gift, we might have to purge or purify something from within. Going back to that sun being in Virgo. Sun is also ruled by that Mercury retrograde. So this is really something that's up for more revision and review in order to make new choices. And it's through expanding upon this knowledge that helps us come into ever deeper layers about our relationship to ourselves and our own natural truths. As that's going on, Venus, the ruler of the South Node, and this Jupiter that is trining the sun is going to be in a conjunction with the asteroid goddess Juno. And Juno is about relatedness, embodying the masculine and the feminine, devotion within partnerships. It's about commitment. And here in the sign of Leo and conjunct Venus, with everything that's going down, this is, to me, speaking to recommitting to loving oneself, Leo, to self-actualize through understanding oneself more deeply, and to have a celebration about it. It's something to be celebrated. Whenever I thought of this and it was coming to me intuitively about what this could mean and how I really felt it was about a recommitment to oneself, seeing as Jupiter and Taurus is ruled by this Venus that is conjunct Juno, I wanted to look up the Sabian symbol for Leo 12 degrees, since this is the degree that the conjunction is happening. And the Sabian symbol for this is Japanese lanterns, music from a string ensemble, and an animated interweaving of colorful figures mark a garden party. And to me, this is about celebrating oneself, honoring oneself, having illumination around one's own inner dynamics, and that is a celebration. And the celebration comes from recommitting to oneself and the relationship to oneself, to self-actualize and creatively self-actualize through that commitment and devotion to self. That also goes back to Venus retrograde, where everything was up for review and it was about reconnecting to self. So now with Juno here and Jupiter retrograde ruling this Venus that's conjunct Jupiter, it's like this emphasis on committing to the truth of oneself, to one's own natural truths, and to trust in oneself and to honor oneself. And when we do that, ever deeper levels of ourselves and our natural truths can be illuminated, and it is something to be celebrated. So I thought that that was really beautiful. And then on the 11th, Chiron in the sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars and Libra, will be in conjunct the sun in Virgo. And this happens while Pluto retrograde in the sign of Capricorn is in a disseminating trine to Pallas Athene in the sign of Virgo, ruled by Mercury retrograde. So let me break this down. Chiron in conjunct the sun. And in conjunct has a Virgo feel to it a lot of times, because it is about self-adjustment, which creates self-improvement. It can have a humbling effect on us, but it can be something that triggers external events that sometimes feel like crisis or are crisis. And that crisis helps us get to the bottom of our dynamics as a way to self-improve. Oftentimes, inconjuncts can happen whenever we're giving ultimate meaning to something outside of ourselves. And Chiron and Aries means that there are wounds that we need to change our awareness around. So that way, that is where the medicine is within that wound, and the awareness that can be shifted regarding the wound, that then can lead to us helping others or transmuting that energy within as a way to be a catalyst for more evolution. And with this Chiron being ruled by Mars in the sign of Libra, we can be looking at old wounds revolving our relationships of where we felt like we couldn't have independence or freedom, of where we self-abandoned. We're looking at, our conditioning around codependency and enmeshment, and where maybe we weren't having self-leadership, Mars, Aries, and instead we were abandoning oneself and our own values and needs for others. So it can be like this Libra self-martyrdom. And with the inconjunct to the sun and the sign of Virgo, this can be really illuminated, and the need to continue this hermit's journey of really being in a transitionary stage of where things can be illuminated, to change the awareness as a way to self-improve through the purging process of these old wounds and the dynamics that the old wounds perpetuated. And with the sun being ruled by Mercury retrograde, this emphasizes the need to go in within to change the awareness, revolving around these dynamics, these old wounds that are being sparked for some. This also means that new choices can be made whenever we go deep within to create the new awareness. And with Pluto trine Pallas Athene during this helps us to have information or gain information through quick insight, lightning speed, Pallas Athene in Virgo, which helps us to have the self-improvement, to have the self-adjustment that's necessary, and to have discernment and to gain natural wisdom through experience. And this happens through reflecting Pluto in Capricorn on prior experiences that may be circling back around for us to make a correct judgment call. This helps us to trust ourselves and to gain more of a sense of natural authority. This is also a conversation that says that keen insight can come in, this is Pallas Athene, through our higher mind. And this helps us to do Pluto in Capricorn, ask and answer our own questions as a way to have a natural sense of authority. Instead of seeing as this is happening while Chiron is in conjunct the sun and Chiron is ruled by Mars and Libra, instead of, having self-leadership and abandoning oneself, whatever insight is coming in or being disseminated to you through the higher mind, this can be a transformative experience in order for a sense of sovereignty, maybe that felt lost at one point in time, to be reestablished. And it is through connecting to that inner voice of asking and answering one's own questions and making correct judgment. So this is your week's forecast, and I want to remind everyone two things. One is October 6th through 8th, I will be doing a class over Lilith and her notes during the Evolutionary Astrology online conference. If you want to sign up for that, I will put a link in the description for you all. And the other thing is, I started saying this again last week, and I'm going to continue to. There is a lot of financial things going on in the world. A lot of people are not being able to pay for things that they once were able to pay for. Inflation is high, all of it. To have a session with me, it is listed, the price is listed on my website. But if you really feel like you would benefit through understanding your own natal chart, your own core dynamics, your own core evolutionary dynamics, and also what these transits are speaking to in your own personal chart, if you can't pay that fee, send me an email and tell me what you can pay, and I will work with you. I have no problem doing that. I want to make this work accessible to everyone. And if you're willing to help yourself, I'm willing to help you. So I just wanted to put that out there. This is a week to dive deeply within. Remember the hermit's journey, and remember to celebrate yourself through this. To not get caught up on denying oneself or making excuses, to really honor the truth and to take it one step at a time. We are in a transitionary stage right now. This is what the astrology is reflecting. And there needs to be a surrendering process to this instead of trying to control. And that really kind of sums up a lot of the energetics of this week. So be gentle and be kind with yourself this week and see what magic happens through going within. I will talk to you all next week whenever we have a new moon. See you then.